Mamas. My name is Kirsten Chong, and I'll be covering this month's topic on organization. The topic of storage and organization was requested by many moms last year, and I really felt called to own this one myself. In our Hearts at Home groups, we have stay-at-home moms and working moms, single moms, and everything in between. And most of the organization of schedules and spaces fall on our shoulders. While I love to jump straight to the how-tos, tips, and tricks, I would be remiss if we didn't dive into the reasons behind our motivation to ensure we're all coming from a healthy mindset, free of overwhelm and guilt. So this will be part testimony, part teaching, and part application. I am going to get really introspective about Tupperware. I'm sorry, I can't help it. So a little about me. I'm a mom of two. Tim is in third grade and Evie's in kindergarten. I've been married to my husband, Chris, for 15 years and a member of Rolling Hills for 18 years. I started attending the summer after I graduated high school and never left. I'm currently a working mom. I work as the systems support manager for a coaching and mentoring firm called Building Champions. But I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years when Evie was born, so I can empathize and relate with both. And you might also know me as the co-lead for Hearts at Home with Julia Pressler. So some background about why this topic is so near and dear to my heart. I love checklists and boxes and bins and hosting and having a clean house. And I'm also very good at mentally compartmentalizing. I tend to clean as I go, but Chris and the kids are not like that at all. I can get really overwhelmed with the constant need to put things away and keep the house clean. But at some point, my compartmentalizing kicks in and I just consciously choose to ignore it. The dishes pile up and the house becomes super chaotic. Honestly, I can function perfectly fine with this for an extended amount of time if I don't have the time or mental capacity to clean or teach my children to clean. However, God did not create Chris the same way, and he is greatly affected by his surroundings. If the house is organized, it's a safe, relaxing environment. If the house is chaos, then life feels chaotic, and then the whole family feels chaotic and stressed. At Building Champions, where I work, we have a mission and vision which has a lot of parallels with Rolling Hills. Last year at work, I shared during one of our all-team meetings on the conviction of being a wise steward. And it was during this period that I really began to connect the dots on how much my environment can affect my day. At the time, I was overscheduled, overbooked, overwhelmed with good things, but my home and my family suffered for it. And I began to recognize that when you live in a constant state of reaction to your environment and circumstances, it's easy to not only miss out on opportunities God has for you, but to compromise healthy boundaries and flip priorities upside down. The reality is that there are some things I can't fully control. However, I can be a good steward of how I react, respond, and prepare for those unforeseen times. And I began to look at getting my house in order as something that would give me back time rather than a burden or something to be anxious and stressed about. I started to let go of the guilt and expectations that I put on myself that I really shouldn't have. So I'm a huge researcher. I love data and reading and problem solving. And I asked myself the question, does the Bible say anything about storage and organization? Does organization and Jesus have anything to do with each other? So that's what I want to take a few moments to look at together before we get to all the fun tips and tricks that have helped me along the way. So maybe not surprisingly, I want to look at Mary and Martha. I feel like Martha gets a bad rap a lot of time, but I can relate to her so much. If you're not familiar with these two sisters, they were good friends with Jesus and sister to Lazarus, who Jesus raised from the dead. There is reference to Mary and Martha 3 times in the Bible. We'll look at Luke 10:38 through 42, which actually focuses more on hospitality and priorities, but lays the foundation for keeping a house in order. It says, were at the home of Mary and Martha. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. He had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." So there are a few key things I want to mention about this interaction. First, Jesus is the main focus of this passage. It's all about him. And the thing I admire about Martha is she knows that Jesus is the source to the answer she looks for, and she is not bashful about telling him. God created Martha, and her personality and giftings are not an accident. But in this moment, she lost sight of why she was doing what she was doing and put the task above her time with Jesus. And the way Jesus responds is with gentle correction and graciously steers her back to him. When I'm looking at getting my house in order, I keep that at the forefront. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And am I showing my love for God and loving others by how I go about doing it? Second, avoid comparing. We all know that comparison is the killer of joy, but we all do it, don't we? In this passage, Martha compares herself to her sister Mary, but God has given us different gifts, abilities, finances, and personalities. And your self-worth is not tied to how clean and organized your home is, or how better or worse it is from your friends or that Pinterest board. It's not about what you do or have, it's about who God is. 3, rest is not laziness. This is one I struggle with so much. When the housework gets overwhelming, my fingers sometimes itch to get things done rather than spend time with Jesus. White space in life is a good thing, but as moms, we take care of a lot of unexpected interruptions in our day. Serving others and meeting their needs is a great thing, but so is taking a break to recognize what's important. So when I'm looking at my organization project list, I prioritize the things that once they're done will free up time to allow for that white space. And in seasons where I have little to none, I pray. I talk to God while I'm doing the dishes, while I'm labeling pantry bins, or when I'm up at 3 a.m. worried about what I didn't get done. And finally, be gracious with yourself, just as Jesus was gracious with Martha. You might come up with the perfect plan or solution, and your kids or spouse may not do what you want them to do. You might get overwhelmed. You might be overwhelmed. Just like Martha, take all your burdens, big and small, boldly to Jesus. So I wanted to focus on Martha because at the heart, I like an organized house so I can open it up to others. But what Jesus taught me through Martha was that hospitality does not mean that my house has to be in perfect order. It has more to do with my heart and making guests feel welcome by extending grace and love. But I also recognize that God is one who created order out of chaos. He is not a God of confusion, but of peace. So desiring order in your home is not a bad thing. Having order can bring peace, as long as our priorities are healthy and aligned with God's. Love God, love people. Serve God, serve people. So with that in mind, let's look at some practical ways we can get our house in order. To start, time management and managing expectations is key. Make a plan. Your goal, divide and conquer. Rome wasn't built in a day. I have spent years trying different methods based on the age of my kids and the rhythms of life. When Tim was born, I suffered major nursing issues, and it was chronically painful to nurse for months. It was all I could do to take care of him, much less myself. If this is you, then this is not the season to start organizing your pantry or closet. This is the season to allow others to come alongside you and do the heavy lifting for you. So please do not be afraid to ask for help. If this is your season and you are ready to start decluttering and simplifying and organizing, then start with a list. I can't emphasize this more. Start with a list. List out all the areas that cause stress to you or your family, then prioritize it. What will give you the best return, make the greatest impact, free up time, or reduce stress? Is it your kids' toys that are a constant issue? Is it the pantry and not knowing what you have, or the entryway with all the shoes and the jackets and bags? How about the dishes on the counter that you never seem to keep off the counter? That would be me. My most recent project was actually our pantry. It drove me nuts that I would miss food because I didn't know what was in there. I decided to take the long route with this one and slowly purchase white bins that I could label. Once I collected enough, I spent a Saturday afternoon pulling everything out and grouping them together. This also helped prevent me from overbuying on groceries and being a better steward with our finances. Number 2, block project time. Put it in the calendar. The dishes happen every day, and if you have littles, laundry may happen every day. Biggest thing that helped me was letting those go for one day so I could focus on organizing one space in my house. Use paper plates for one day, eat leftovers, give your kids extra tech time, and give yourself a couple of hours to work on your project. 3, have your family members part of the process. So I like to sit in the space that my kids' toys are used the most and look around. Ask yourself these questions. What is the flow of your day like in that space? Is it designated for kids, or is it your living room? If your kids are super little, then having one large toy box where they can help clean up might be the way to go. Do your kids love sorting? Then maybe separate bins or boxes with labels will work better. Ask them what they would like to do, and they will have more ownership of it. Number 4, consolidate. Do you have too much of something? So dishes have been a constant struggle, and that is probably true for all of us. My wedding, we were gifted 4 sets of cutlery, super nice, but it has felt like I was doing 4 loads of dishes a day. We were swimming in dirty dishes nonstop. One of the first organization changes I made was to reduce the number and types of dishes we had. It felt so strange giving away silverware and dishes, but we just had too many. And then as my kids grew older and stopped spitting up all the time, I did the same thing with our clothes and do this regularly once or twice a year. There are phases when my kids need a lot of pants and other stages where they need more shirts. Find a mom with younger kids than yours and pass down either what you have too much of or what your kids have outgrown. 5, everything needs a home. If I can't find a home for something, then I ask myself if I really need that item and choose to donate or give it away. I've had greater success with staying organized if everything has a home, more so if it's labeled. If your kids can't read yet, then have a picture with the label. And if you don't have the budget for ordering vinyl labels, my trick is I love using the clear Avery labels used for envelopes and packaging and printing them at home myself. They're like stickers that you can put on anything. So number 6, cabinets, baskets, and boxes are your friend. Put a lid on it. Out of sight, out of mind. We wanted the living room to be a calming and relaxing place free of clutter and toys. But even with everything put away, visually, you could see everything on the shelves. And I realized that for my family, that just wouldn't work. This was a bigger transition, but I decided to sell our open shelves and TV stand and use that money to buy IKEA cupboards so I could still store our games and blankets in the living room, but they weren't visible. It's amazing the effect this change had on my family. So if you don't have a budget for buying boxes and bins, then save shoe boxes, Costco boxes. If you want it to look pretty, get some paper and Mod Podge it up. I love that idea, but practically I don't always have the time for that. I do use the kids' shoe boxes to store art supplies, Play-Doh, summer chalk, and use them in their drawers as dividers for clothes. So number 7, don't be afraid to tweak things if they are no longer working. Maybe your new system works for you, but it doesn't work for your family. Tim and Evie are now old enough to help with putting the dishes away, but they can't reach the cabinets up above. We designated a lower cabinet for all of their cups, plates, bowls, Tupperware, and water bottles so that they have ownership over putting those away. The shelf may not always be as orderly as I would like, but my kids are empowered and they have an opportunity to serve at home. I've also organized their toys so many times to fit the ages that they're at. We've narrowed it down to favorite toys that are labeled with bins currently. And then I also use the KonMari folding method for my clothes, but it's not realistic for my kids. I want them to own helping with their own laundry, so I don't have that expectation for them. And finally, ask for help. If you love the idea of organizing your house but are frozen and just don't know what to do or how you will do it, I guarantee you another mama in your group or someone else's group loves it. Find a project buddy and share the load with each other by either watching each other's kids or sitting down and making a plan together. So that's all I have for today. I hope these tips and tricks give you some direction, and remember, be gracious with yourself and your family. Take your time and keep God at the center of your priorities and purpose. Have a great night.